Good evening, everybody. You're very, very welcome to the United Arts Club, Dublin, this evening. Just to say that we have Tom Mathews here as our artist this evening. This is Tom's third time exhibiting here in the club, and we're delighted that since that last exhibition, Tom has become a member of ours, and we're delighted to welcome Tom as a member. This evening, I'm not going to say very much. All I want to do is just to say that James C Harrold is going to open this exhibition, and Tom is going to tell you all about James. Tom knows him personally, and James did say to me this evening when he came in that he was very honoured and privileged to be speaking here in the United Arts Club, and I thank him for those wonderful comments. So without any more, I just ask Tom just to introduce James, and James will then formally speak and open the exhibition. Thank you all.
Thank you. I didn't think I was going to have to introduce James.
You told me you would.
It strikes me as a nice introduction. I seem to remember, I do not remember how long ago it is when we first met. How long ago is it?
About 2,000 years.
I thought it was longer than that. But, I think when we met we were in, unless I'm mistaken, the back snug of Doherty and Nesbitt's.
You were actually about to tell my first story.
I was going to run that side and tell it again, but
No, you
better. I overheard the man with the Galway accent reciting a poem, I think by, was it Alan Garner, the Welsh novelist? And since I knew this poem myself, I went in and we recited the last verse together. And I said, I'll have to know this guy. And he said, why don't you come down to Galway sometime? And this has led to me coming down to Galway endless times. And to the two of us becoming, you know, like great pals, you know, apart from the occasional scream and row, which we're not going to have tonight. But anyway, he's a man of
probably will actually.
well, we probably will anyway, he's a man of many parts, and I'm not going to get to all that. I'm just going to ask him to formally open this exhibition, because I'm not a speaker, and you know, a picture paints 1,000 words, and there's thousands of words on the wall there. So I'll let James do the talking. Okay? Thank you, James. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Agus Guramaga. It's more on Anor Dumsa that live enough. It is such a great honour to be here in the Arts Club. When I was a little boy, my father, who used to live in Dublin, here I am making life very difficult for Justin. We'll be telling stories about Justin too. But my father, who lived in Dublin and played for Dublin and stuff, used to bring me around and show me all the great cultural buildings of Dublin and all the life of Dublin. And one of them indeed was the Arts Club. And for me, the Arts Club and the community of artists and artistic people who live in the Arts Club always was just like the apogee of artistic, bohemian, cultured, imaginative and innovative life in not only Dublin but in Ireland, and it still is. So it is such a pleasure and a privilege beyond belief for me to be here to say a few words tonight and to open any exhibition, but particularly an exhibition of Tom's here in the holy ground of the Arts Club. Such an honour. Yeah, it was another iconic Dublin building. Doherty and Nesbitt said it was the back snug, and I had bought the book, the Pegwood book of Respectable Verse, and on page 113 there's a poem by Alan Garner that starts, "There's a girl in our village who makes love in a churchyard. She doesn't care who, but it must be a churchyard." And then this head stuck in. The body was draped in rotting tweeds. Tom was a much darker gentleman in those days than he is now, but essentially he was the same Tom. And Tom said, "It doesn't care who, but it must be a churchyard. They say she prefers the old part to the new." And then together we said, "Green granite chippings rankle maybe, but warm limestone welcomes." And afterwards, in her bedroom, she sees the mirror's view of her shoulder embossed in loving memory. And then we called pints, and we had a chat, and the rest of the poem, it was very short, Who's, why do you do it, Al? You've 8 O levels, why not? It's as good a place as any, close by, Roots Green, Nave, Chapel G's, and when you half close your eyes, the horn gargoyles choose. But Anne, it had to happen. Last night you were levelled. William Smith, late of this parish, lay cold beneath you, and his great-great-grandson lay warm above. And you arose, though your shoulder did not know it, in glorious expectation of the life to come. That's got me into more pubs than you as well. So, anyway, that was recited back in the days when you could recite poetry in Nesbitt's and didn't have rugby and television and things like that. And shortly afterwards, Tom was in an Arts Council touring exhibition called A Bit of the Wall, which was put together by John Hunt, who was one of the 2 visual arts curators for the Arts Council back in the day. And I know that Trish Hunt is here somewhere tonight. So we think of John, and we think of John and Rory, who's here, and Vinny O'Shea touring Tom Mathews around the country, which wasn't that easy, because in gatherings like this, which were mainly organised by local authorities, Tom went out of his way to insult all the county chairpersons and mayors and anyone he could possibly insult. But it was good practice for Vinny and Rory got a great job out of it, so who's complaining? And we all loved that exhibition. And as the years went by, Tom, whom we knew from his days in Dublin in particular, and also Hot Press, came down the country. I remember him once getting access to a Galway Arts Festival event by showing them the front cover of Hot Press with Tom dressed as a leprechaun on the cover. And he became a firm friend of ours in Galway. So when you miss Tom for a couple of weeks and you're wondering, Tom hasn't been seen in Grogan's, is he all right? He's probably down with us in our room with various spaniels, sleeping with them and entertaining Tea Nocturne in the way that he usually entertains Grogan's. And it has actually got to the stage where Tom is sort of an alternate artistic director of the Sheer and Galway Cartoon Festival, and we'll be having a retrospective of his work. None of this work will be in it because it will all be sold, of course. So if you do buy his work, and why wouldn't you? You may have to give it back to him for this year, but the best thing to do is encourage him to do other work. But anyway, that's opening, I think it's around the 4th of October. So Tom's come to Galway. And he often exhibited for me when I was county arts officer in the sort of places that he characterised in a cartoon he drew for David Hanley back in the day, the Sunday Tribune, which was like a rural festival, which was heifer strangling in the big field. And so Tom has become a firm favourite of ours in Galway. Now, I must look down, I actually wrote stuff down. It's mainly terrible stories about Tom, which I think I can tell you individually, one by one. But Tom's career, like indeed the career of most of us, I suppose, just carried on just from success to success to success. The Irish Times in particular, genuinely, Tom's cartoons, the Artoons in the Irish Times for several years, it was the most amazing thing. You could hear the whole of civilised Ireland laughing on a Saturday morning. And the cartoons were great, they were beautifully drawn, the gags weren't too complicated, but they were just pitched at exactly the right place where most people would get them and enjoy them and feel clever about them. And to think that back in those happy days, the Irish Times actually wanted to do something as nice as make everybody laugh for the right reasons on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning, depending on what time you got the paper. But it was too good to last. But for several years, it was one of the great things in Tom's life. And of course, we know that so he was writing poetry, and he's got a new collection coming out as well. But like everybody else, it all came to a grinding halt in March 2020, and Tom retreated to his palazzo in Inchicore. And the ranch, he became a rancher, and it actually was sort of suitable too, because I remember Tomás McConnell telling me back in the day, because Tomás McConnell, the theatre director, was from that part of Oriel up in Louth, where Tom Mathews' father and his uncles came from, And he said, long-headed fellows, those Mathewses, they were both farmers, but long-headed fellows. So Tom is indeed a long-headed fellow. But this long-headed fellow retreated to the ranch, and we were all, I suppose, in the early days of the lockdown, going back and reading books about people locked down for one reason or another. And it sent me back to a book I hadn't read for a very long time, a fantasy novel by Huysmans called Aribor, in which there is this wonderful character who retreats to his mansion in the burbs to contemplate higher things. And if I can read it, exactly, Jean Desessant. Soaring upwards into dreams, seeking refuge in illusions of extravagant fantasy, living alone, far from his century, among memories of more congenial times, and we're all becoming ghosts, so fair enough, of less base surroundings. Each chapter became the sublimate of specialism, the refinement of a different art. It became condensed into an essence of jewellery, perfumes, religious and secular literature, of profane music and plain chant. Well, we can forget about plain chant, but Tom, in the 2.5 years that he spent in his Demi Palazzo in Inchicore, produced this exhibition for our delight, this crystalline exhibition. And I was thinking, Tom is probably the last person left, the last artist left in Dublin who is still working in 60s pop art, and who still takes the aesthetics of 60s pop art to his soul and turns it into something new and interesting. I said I'd use that word somewhere, interesting. New and interesting. So what we have here is Tom's world. And you can imagine, as you see Tom leaving his house in Inchicore and sauntering into Grogan's, this is the world Tom sees. These are the colours Tom has before him, and this is his world. This is June, and the month where people's attention turns to Joyce and Bloomsday more readily than most this year's. And we think of the fact, if I get the quote right, that of course that Joyce said something about the critics, and I think, to paraphrase Joyce, I think Tom's work, and particularly this exhibition, will keep the art critics busy for 100 years. The work is all for sale. It's unique. I don't think we're ever going to see it's like again in an exhibition in Ireland. So I urge you to buy this unique and historic work, and I'm delighted and honoured here in the United Arts Club to declare this exhibition open. Tá súlgum bhfuilís sult is tánach as an taspáintas starúil is íontach seo. Go raibh maith.